Okay. Live communication, interline centers, energy patterns, communication force line system, allocate time strain interference, vector communication of grounds, atmosphere locations, all levels, kaleidoscope location, all levels. What does this mean, all line interference? It's all about position location, how we create our own egos. An ego is created through center operation of you. Let me say that again, center operation of you. If you don't understand the travels of you, you're always going to find a way to create its ego that's already in its existence. To not create an ego is not to have a thought. In position, location of directions. So if I say something, am I traveling through it? I don't know. That's an ego. If you're not sure of these things, ask me later. That's an ego. Anything that is hesitation is an ego. That automatically shields you and separates your position of location. Don't create an ego, no creation of thought. Once you don't have any creation of thought, open space. Flow, recognition of flow, time of flow, space of flow. Space and time doesn't have an ego. It doesn't understand the connection of its ego. You know why? Because humanity doesn't understand the position location of balance. It's balancing the ego that separates position location and line conditions. So what are you trying to do? Not create an ego. Because as soon as you create the ego, you're trying to balance it through thoughts. Whoa, too much ego on one side, too much ego on the other side. You got to find a way, position locations, dissolve the ego, doesn't exist. But once it exists, it's in your plateau, it's in your division, it's in your correlation interference, it's in your interline center to your Schumann resonant location of vibration, right? In high interference line conditions, this is an ego. Very high, but very stressed. Now, if you're sad, all right, let's say you're happy. See the difference there? Do you see the vibration go high line and so many levels? Now you can have a low point in a thermometer location. Now, this is all levels of how to use the thermal. The thermal communication line stream, everything through the radar, sets signals, location, the position, location, and direction. Trace down that calculations. Now let's say you're in a happy moment. Let's go in positions of being mad. The lower frequency, the harder the control of the ego location of balance. So get back in position of balance. Stay in the highest line center, no ego. Ego learns to position location, downforce line center. What just happened? Shut off. Now you got to turn it on again. Okay? It's like anything, like turning on a motor. Okay? Anything that position location on a lawnmower. Right? So, to understand the energetic line center is to understand, does that lawnmower have an ego? It only perceives what you perceive location to your ego location. Now, you are creating through your own perception. Ego is not created in line center location space-time. Space and time is trying to find your balance. You are the center operation of you. You and you only. But if you're not in the center, you're already creating an ego. It's your interpretation of how you create your thoughts, guys. This is about understanding more levels of you. Today in travel, we're going to travel location position to a plant, manufacturing line center, where the ego was created through source. In position location, you understand how to level these things out. It's like leveling out a ground communications, right? You got a steamroller. Flatten the curve. There's a hill here and you're trying to put it down, pressure. But you're hurting your arms, you're hurting All lines. You're hurting your legs. You're hurting your knees. You're hurting everything. You're hurting your mind. You're hurting your body. You're hurting your soul. All communication. Because what are you trying to do? You're trying to understand why are you trying to do this if you don't understand what the center line center, what it is, the creation of its own ego. So it doesn't matter how many times you try to push down, you can't do it because you don't understand the source of creation. So in position location, understanding the line center of its ego is already in creation. You create it through your thoughts as soon as you get up in the morning. Why? Because you have a tendency to create thoughts. That's another ego. Don't create a thought, no ego. Once you create a thought, ego right away. Ego in position location of light and dark doesn't matter because now you got to balance it, right? You got to balance these things. Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. I don't want to drop it. No, no, no. Whoa, 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 whoa. So what are you doing? You're balancing. You're trying to find the scale of view of measure. So every time you come in position location, time sequence, time line, center location of a calculation, watch what happens. This is the ego missing its position location of the step line. You go. It lost its position. Let's try again. It's trying to understand each other. So if it tries to communicate, balance. Once you balance out the planes of view and its runway, you have a better understanding how to incorporate the balance of its ego of the positive, negative, and all aligned position location of how you create your locations of your thoughts. Don't create a thought that you don't want. It simplifies everything. If you're sad, what's happened to your position location of calculation, right? Let's say you're dancing. Ego comes in. Now you get sad. Right? Here comes the other side of the ego. Right? So in calculation, it's balancing the frequency. Very good. Creates a balance or a frequency to understand communication of its co-creation is all levels of view and how you interpret your perception to its calculation. Right? So remember, you create the ego. Somebody coming at you, that is a trigger of its ego. Okay? So either you create the ego and it comes into expansion, either on the light side or the dark side. But there's no representation of light and dark, only light. The one thing that you guys have to do is balance your egos first before it disappears, but it's still there. Now you're in one cycle line, rotation, interference, position, location, and direction. Not only you understand the ego doesn't exist. Hooah. So in that position of directions, you get a better deep core. It's a deep, deep core, right? It's like, right? So keep your vibrations high. The ego won't be able to come in. So you got a force field line center. And every time the ego comes in, it's bouncing off. It's not coming in. But as soon as you reflect position location of its ego, it's going through because you allowed it to come through. You're opening up the door. Hey, come on in. Let's go. More egos. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. I don't have all day. More egos, more egos, more egos, more egos. So if you're allowing your egos to take over your system, what are you creating? A space-time anomaly. You don't want to do that. Okay? All right. So that's just an intro. All right. We'll go in position of calculations. Let's highlight channels first. See how everybody's doing. We got a lot going on this week and next week line system. in calculation. Pam, how's it going? Jill, how's it going? Amby, how's it going? Aaron, how's it going? Terry, Don, Johnny, Michael, Lindsay, Gypsy, Val, Jill, Yolanda, Stacy, Sarah, Tina, how's it going? Tina, I'll get back to your locations. You want to be upgraded? All right, let's see. Interference location line system, position, location, directions. Lester, Rainer. All right, so most of you guys are already traveling. That's totally fine. But that position location to get a better direction location is calculation high system, right? Everything that I reside with is all levels of. So if the eagle goes left in one line center, which is the right line rotation interference, it needs its left line position. Balance, guys. Balance the left and the right line center rotation calculations. Ego does not only exist in position location unless you create it. All right? Okay, let's travel. So high position and directions. Let's go into correlation panel. Coming in high center, interference line connection code system. All right, timeline center interference, factory, manufacturer, high system locations, all lines. All right, so we're going to go into 1 billion line circles in position location of track interference. Flat division locations, foundation of ego line center. Okay, so we go ego location, ego equals box, box equals y, equals line communication. Okay, slash line centers into plus communication system. All right, times frequency times line. Now times frequency, okay, is the position of directions. Okay, equals times line. Times line is this line communication to its ego line connection in position and direction. So travel line center, we're going to travel the location, position, location with high system. So the ego is in the box location. That's where you guys are. So you're going to travel to the Y line center. Don't know exactly what it is, the creation line. You do the factory communication, the manufacturing line system. Okay. So it's another line center line rotation calculation. It's a galaxy surface lock. That galaxy surface lock will put you in position location to its manufacturing plant location. All right. High channel line center, position location, code signals in position high system. Open all communication to all information line center to its ego line connections. Trapping signals in high line center interference location, code signal locations in high positions. All right. High rotation line center, okay, into line rotation, sector, vector, quadrant line center, interdimensional to intergalactic line system. Get the information location of travel. All right. You guys are traveling very, very fast in high fast line rotations. You're going through an energy shower wash. Now, the energy shower wash is basically, it's kind of like a steam line interference, position, location, directions. Cutting signals and positions part of the line streams, line and rotation calculations. So anything in a planet's surface line channel is open to connection types of locations. So an ego line center separates all positions, how you use your light signals and everything, your dark line interference. Ego isn't created, okay, until you create it. It's very simple to understand these position locations, right? So we go through XLAR. That's XLAR planet. That's where the ego is created. XLAR is a position line center. XLAR, okay, equals LAR. Levels, atmospheres of position locations of, remember, LAR. LAR interference locations boxes, position locations to timeline, opens up its point line system. Time interference position locations. Now this is where highlines its position locations calculation. All right. Highline center scans its rotation center to its ego line connections. Opens all communication into its ground system. Plasma light signal communication system line comes to its grounds. Opens all communications. High level rotation line center going into the plant center. Have fun. Signal interference and fluctuation line stand. Now it's in communication. Well, if you look at it really close, it kind of looks like a teepee, right? So it's like a sweat box in a communication line stream. Understand location on lines and how you get into information locations. So have fun in that line center interference. We'll get in track locations of white graph line system. Now, in position of direction, I really like to stay with the triangles in high center. We really understand the communication to its interference. A program is position, location, and triangulation. 3-line, triangle line, and rotation calculations. Now, if you set signals in communication, you can open plateau of hologram line center. So what's standing position, location of directions? Center op. This is the center op line center of triangulation. So center equals op line, okay, equals line of op locations in position of directions. So you take the line signal into the center op rotation calculation triangulation. That opens up the triangulation force line communication. Now that puts position directions into the center line backing communication system. All right, pretty cool, right? So this is another formation of XT1000. Scans line center to all levels of crop circle location connection. Ooh-ah. Right? So all of understanding travel is understanding the travel through you. You can't travel through your egos. Let me say it again. You cannot travel through your egos. Because if you travel through your ego is creating your travels. Ooh, that's a big one. Think about that through line system. So where are we through calculation of travel? Moving any of the old programs, checking, closing, constant running programs, sometimes undetected, receiving codes. Excellent. Flies an ego, higher and higher, unconditional love, seeing connection, tubes of lower frequencies, feeding tubes. Very good. Chill. It's great satellite system. Others like to come to the lane, provide advice that I'm in my ego, which is their ego, trying to take my babes down. See? It's interesting to come across that line condition interference. It's amazing what it is, right? You create the travels of your ego, and the ego comes back through its trigger. So that's why we're always triggered by everything from their positions of what they created through the thought line system. So in that position locations, you have to understand how levels of its travel. See, if you can structure an interference position location of its ego line center, ego location of travel, ego, okay, equals travel. Travel equals ego, all right, in that position location directions, right? So if it creates position across its system, if it crosses its system, it comes into a correlation into a box position location. Now, the high channel of the time line center comes into higher line position locations, an up force and a down force line condition. Okay? Channel line centered in the high rotation calculations, panel interference. Now, when it comes into panel interference, you split the center line conditions to its position. Now, that opens up more communications times pi. Right? So anything that you split comes pi. So it's true to understand this. You understand your clock lines, right? So you got a clock and you got a pi in center position. Let's start there. There's the center. Now the center of the operation is in position, location, and directions, right? You're going well with line conditions. But this is the ego that's coming in. That's the ego. That's position of you in the center. Now in position location, the ego is going to always try to find a way to get in position, location, and direction in 3-line centers. It's always going to find a way to get in. If it gets in position locations, if your emotional track system is offline connections, let's say you're in a high line center rotation calculation graph location. It's going down, right? The more it goes down, then this opens up and the ego comes into the center. It takes over you to program setting. So understand where it comes from. It's the creation of you through energy. You are creating it, and it's opening up its own portal. Yes, you just open up a portal location, the ego. So as soon as you go down in the graph line, center, interference line, and direction locations, your ego is back in center line conditions, taking over. Now, if it's taken over, it's going to create its own clocking system right away in position. It's creating its own clock. Now, this is okay. So let's say you were at 144. Hey, ego wants to go to 644, but you can't handle that speed line. Doesn't matter. You're taking over location 644. Let's say you want to go to all line center location of sonar. Sonar set up position, location, directions. Setting high sequence patterns at alpha channel communication system. Oh no, what's happening to me? Ego's taking over location of line center interference. Oh boy, what's going on? We got position location of indigo line center to lines and rotation delta waves. Uh-oh, what's going to happen? In position locations coming in security measures, perimeters, parameters, high line center interference calculations. Ego line center is coming into high force line center. Do you see what the ego is doing? It's changing everything through your direction location through your clocking. all through its ego. So why is it so important to create an ego line center? All right. So in that position locations, you understand that, the importance of what it is, because you are creating its thought. Wow, I'm creating a thought, but I want to stay positive. But equals ego. Hesitation equals line center triangulation of all line center location of thinking. Okay, you don't want to do that line center. Not a good idea. Thinking. Time, position, locations. Okay, there it is. There's the water line center. Once that position location, it overloads line center, change the correlations of the ground interference location and direction. All right. So it offline centers, and this is where it comes into Y line interference to position equals flux capacitor. You have to be high rise line center and flux capacitor because you can't do it through Y system. So it's kind of like understanding that you got an alphabetical line stream that's in the back force communication, but you understand the clocking line system. But I understand the force communication, so it's not the Y line center, it's the flux capacitor location. But is it the inner line center? But at least you're communicating and you're not creating ego. You're trying to find out the result of its position. Okay, you're not creating egos. Egos are only created to the mind, which is created to the location of the brain, which is connected to line center location to your heart, which is connected to the location to your soul, which is connected to levels of space, which is connected to levels of travel. So that position location gives you a timeline system. All right, out of time, out of mind, out of sight, out of sound. All right, so that's what BUT stands for. Ego. You're coming in timeline center. Y equals flux capacitor location of its ground system. That automatically changes your Schumann resonance back-end position location and calculations to its system. All right. So you understand what the ego is doing to you every day. Don't have a thought in position, location, or directions. All right. So the thing is, too, when you're thinking, it's an ego. But where's it going? Is it going forward? Is it going back? Is it going line system? Is it going cross signal? Is it going straight up position? Is it going north? Is it going east? Is it going south? Is it going west? Is it going northeast, northwest, north line connection? Where is it going? Where is the ego going? So the time the line center of the ego only comes in until you understand your emotional system. Now, once you understand your emotional system, that's ego position of manipulation. You have to balance position, location, and track location to one line system, right? So it's a scale, cross line center locations of a scale, and position, location, of directions. You're scaling your aligned position. Okay, see the intelligence? You see the intelligence, you see the fish, two fish line centers, line cross locations of scale. You got higher line center and antenna communication system. So once you balance at the scale in position location, all line centers, understands its friendship, relationship, and partnership, and saying to yourself, now I know how to create the ego, but I want to get rid of the ego. Well, to understand the communication is not just scaling it. Okay, it's understanding how it's created, because you created it. Nobody else created the ego. And this is going deep, deep, deep core to its position location of high line center. See, this is the understanding is that when you come into your manifestation, you're already creating something, okay? But you're not sure where it's coming from, but it's coming from you, or it's coming from somebody else, right? So this is what you have to be careful of, what you see, what you hear. And what you hear is this position of its own ego, which is all levels of a trigger. Somebody is triggering you. So that's a way they can come in. Oh, wow. I just got triggered. I just got caught off guard, right? So what is that to its position location? It's all levels of aligned connections to a open door. Yes. Ego's coming in this way, ego's coming in that way, ego's coming in that way, right? You just invited all line centers and egos locations because you lost your train of thought through confusion. Your emotional system has its own separation, guys. right? If you balance your emotional system, you balance the ego system, you find a way, the creation of its source, no more ego. So it's like being cautious of this, being cautious of that, understanding this more, understanding that more. You get my point, right? So don't invite it in because you're creating it. And if it's coming back at you, that's a trigger. And once you're triggered, you're lost. You're confused. Disruption. That alone, whoa, what just happened? I feel different. What's going on? Something's not right. Something's been taken over. So now you understand what it is. Anything through box line and rotation calculation, anything the center operation, if the ego's here and you're in the center line connections, all you have to do is protect everything through its force communication system of its energy line center in calculation. And the ego cannot get in position. Once it understands that, it leaves its system. Okay? So don't create it. The only way to do that is don't have thoughts in your mind. But that's next to impossible. No, it's not. Because remember, as soon as you create the ego, you're creating space anomaly. You're changing your patterns of your voice. You're changing your electrical system. You're changing your panel line interference. You're changing your track locations. You're creating paradox, paradigm, polar shifts, polarity shifts, all through your ego that you just finished creating. So how important is it to stay positive? Into center line, position, location, all track location, right? So, all right. D fields up, sending divine love. Let's see who wants to join. Yeah, it's incredible remembrance. You know, some people are going to be crying, trying to understand this more, trying to understand that more, realize you're not a victim. I mean, it's all position, location, and directions, right? But I'm just showing you how this is started. Understanding source of creation is understand its position, how to get friendship and relationship with its partnership location. What not to do the next time you come into creating its ego. All right? Everybody's crying. Working on this for a long time. This time we get the alignment. Yep, that's exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. Knowing the creation is all levels of you. You're 100% in how you feel. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. There's no such thing as perfection. It's how you feel inside through emotion. Your emotional system is everything through its connections. But remember, anything through anxiety, anything through stress, anything through depression has its own position location of its creation. But it's waiting for you to create it. Let me say that again. It's waiting for you to create it. It's on standby. So when you create it, it comes in. It's already created. It's already evolved. It's in its own intelligence and its own position location of calculation of its own dimensional space and time. Now, you have to find a way to get it out. Okay? It's not like pulling a thorn out. Ow! No, it's not that simple. It's like into the roots of you, into the position of the grounds. And it's so deep, 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 deep. You have to reach the position location through its energy line center, communicate with it, and find a friendship, a relationship, partnership to a position location of calculations. All right? That is self-creation. That is self-alliance. Self-reliance location of self-love is its own confliction location. Remember, the ego line center is all levels of you. It's how you interpret your perception, how you see it through an ego of a trigger. People come to you through trigger, but you're creating your ego. Now, if you don't understand their trigger, not only the ego's taking over you, you have to deal with their ego on top of yours. Now, that's a Fibonacci sequence, multi-pass. All right. So if a Fibonacci sequence line center interferes with creation to creates its line in rotation calculations one way position and the other line center location the opposite location, what's happening? What's happening? Right? It's either coming in position location or direction. Okay. Or it's basically separating its position location and direction. Right? It's coming in or it's going out. Right? That's in position location of positive and line center locations of negative line center. right? Now, interesting. Look at this. Even though it goes in, it's a negative. Why? Because it understands the rotation. So the positive is reaching out. That's the calculation. That's manipulation. How to manipulate space inside you is all correlation to you. Your fluctuation to line connection is all levels of position of circulation. Circulation of rotation. Circulation of rotation. Circulation of rotation. Circulation of rotation. So an ego is created through what? Through your interpretation. All right. So you decide if you want to go in or separate location. Now this could be positive equals negative, and this could be negative equal positive, right? But is it balanced? Well, I don't know. Do you understand the concept of the Fibonacci going one way and going the other way line system? A Fibonacci sequence line center is not a swirl. It's one way and another way, but in a position location of two equal centers of light and dark. That's a Fibonacci. That means you're going downstairs and you're going upstairs, downstairs, upstairs, down, and you go fast, 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 faster. You can't make up your mind if you're going upstairs or downstairs. That's the perception of its ego. So now you get a better understanding why it's so important to see these things through creation of source. So it's powerful when you connect to that system all through Fibonacci. So that's why you always have to move forward. Don't create anything in your mind and you'll be fine. Space is open. Space is open at so many position location. It's astronomical through its an expansion. You're coming into the mind of acceptance of who you are through its ego. Once you come into that, you balance out its ego. Once you come into that, you come friendship, relation, and partnership. Once you understand that, you find the creation of its source. Once you understand that, no ego. Ooh-ah. Right? So now you understand how an ego is created through source recognition of you through division. All right? So, okay, let's see. My ego started at ages 3. But see, that's another thing, too. You guys are coming into old patterns, old communication of fortitude light centers and interference location. There's no such thing as light and dark, only light. That's the existing location of rotation in circulation. So the atom is all levels of you. It's your interpretation of what you do through your thought line. So if your thought line is traveling in position of acceleration line center times speed, time calculation box system, where are you in track location of your thought lines? Are you in the positive line or the negative locations? If you're in a negative location, is that positive or negative? That's all what you perceive through your perception. So it's all understanding. If you say negative in a negative line center, your vibration drops right away. If you say negative line center in a positive position, it stays in the balanced position location. See what I did? Now, in that triangulation, it brings it back in communication to the center line connection. All right? Now, that rotation position locations is all about you understanding through calculation the high line, its graph line system. Higher. Go higher. The more you stay higher, the more you balance out the ego. You go here, 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 here. Okay, so you got an eagle line drop. It's really interesting too. Eagle line drop goes the air line down position location of calculation, right? And you got an eagle line center line connection to the ground going up position locations, right? It's interesting to look at location, what it is to ego. So it's pretty crazy how you look at the eagle line center. It has a ground interference. It has a power adapter line rotation, and it has a magnetic highway information system of its calculation, of its modification of its time sequence. Right? All calculated and modified through you, through its own ego. Right? So what is ego? Energy, grounds of opening. Ecosystem is energy of communication of its operation. So the operation is the balance line center and how it interprets the location to the avatar stream. The sector line communication is its position, location, and direction. This times precedes everything through its time capacitor. Okay, so it comes into an open box signal. Now that opens up a graph line center location of P reception one line. That communicates to high line rotation calculations in position, location, directions. Ooh-ah, travel line center. In that position locations, you can highline position location all levels. You bounce your communication or ego in position of the direction, hold signals to its location. right? See how powerful that is? Now, once you come in that line center locations, the center line of its creation comes back in a source line of another jump scar interference. That positions it offline center in highline rotation calculations. It opens up all ground center interference position locations to its calculation. Now, once it's in that position line connections, you skyrocket high channel. Now, the skyrocket comes into data streamline interference. That position locations brings up another open box signal in position direction, another box signal location. All right. Another box position location. See how it's opening location? Right? So it's moving forward, not moving back. Ooh-ah. See? You expand the ego, you're expanding the negative line system. Only what you perceive. So it's your understand, don't create it. Don't have thoughts. Because the creation is you. Now, if the avatar understands its position, then it understands not to create its ego location of its negative system. But if you see the negative as positive, it's fine. But if you see the negative as negative, it's not fine. Because the negative is creating an overline center location of its positive position location of direction. So it's negative, 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 negative. Where's the positive? You got one positive. The positive has to go back in position location of force line into fierce line connections times pi. That calculates its high line interference of direction location. So that's important to understand these things. So you have to balance out the positive and negative location to its ego, right? Because if you're going to negative location, all right, backclocking line center interference. If you're getting confused, you got a 7-line center, but you got another 7-line connections. 2 backline centers is 7. But all you're trying to find to do is trying to find the balance in position location, side graph line center, interference location direction. All right. Now, if you understand the communication line system, the arrows get smaller in the high interference. Now, once it gets smaller in high system locations, calculation comes into position location on line system. Now, it modifies high line center in position of 45-degree angle line connection, position location and directions, opens all communication line system and position location calculation. Now, understanding the communication line stream is cross signal, crossing over grid locations, position of time, center line communication of signals, high position locations calculations. Right? So now you got the grid line center and rotation calculations going forward without its ego. Right? So your job is to create a high-level system of teleportation unit to understand more levels of travel. Right? You can't do that through its ego. Because if you create the ego, it stops its signal location of its calculation, right? Through its atmosphere change. Anything through atmosphere, hemisphere, stratosphere, or anything with bio force line communication system. Now, in that position locations, this is what happens. It changes its grid system of calculation, right? This is what an ego does. It changes your rainbow graph stream into this position. Now, if it does that, it changes your line signals, your data streams in position location. This is all what you're doing through creation on the other line center of the negative line center interference. Uh-oh. What did you just do? Right? And that's all back force line center. So it's important to understand these things, guys. Always find a way to keep yourself high in not just the vibration line interference, but try to keep yourself in the center operation of you without creating its ego of a center location. Because the thing is, if you create an ego line center in position location without its E field, this is what happens. You're in a position locations, right? So you're an open sequence, open pattern. You go here, looking at you, right? This is all the ego waiting. As soon as you create your thought, it's coming in, right? That's a lot of ego waiting for you to just slip up. So in position, you don't have your E fields up. What do you think is going to happen? Not only that, but they're going to come into triangulation, form their position location of calculations, and take over your system. Once they get them into communication geometry line infinite, they go one line center, in position location directions. Sliding here, going down here, position, here, in calculation, here in position, here in calculation. Now you're trapped. So in that calculations, then they take you over in 3-line communication system. Ooh-ah, you're done, you're finished. So don't create the ego. Don't create an ego that doesn't exist. Once it exists, it creates its own system. So what it is if you're trying to understand you through travel, and you're creating your geometry, locations, oppositions, your Merkaba, your tesseract, your tetrahedron. That's great. That's great. That's beautiful. Wonderful. What you just finished doing. But don't remember, and that position locations do remember through calculation, is to understand that that ego is already set. It's waiting for you to create it. You understand that? It's waiting for you to create it, which is on standby. So it's not created until you create it. And once you create it, it's already created, which means it's already taken over. So, and that's why you can't move forward, is because every time you get up in the morning, you're manifesting things that are not created yet, because it's in a position of going backlocking system. Okay? You're not going forward, you're going back with its ego, because it's already position of already been taken over. It's the 3 triangle location. Right? Especially if you don't have your E fields. Now, if you had your E field location, everything to the triangulation would back off its position location. Right? You need to have your position of your center operation of your fields. So, understand, you're creating something beautiful. Okay? It's connected to the Merkaba. It's got its tesseract. It's got a computer operation line stream. It's got a connection to the tetrahedron. Now, that's beautiful. That's amazing we just finished doing. But remember, you can also go on the other side and create that. So that's the position of balance, guys. Don't create an ego because it goes one way or the other way. And it's what you suggest next happens to its position, to its location of source. So it's very understanding what it is, right? Don't create thoughts in the mind until you understand the balance of your own ecosystem. Okay? That's all it is. All right. I'm going to take you guys out. 41 line centers, 50 communication high system. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now you're back. All right. Took you out of equation interference location line connections. All right. So you guys are back. So I hope you guys had a lot of fun. To understand, you have to put yourself in your calculation where you see yourself in the future. Let's start there. If you want to see yourself going forward, the only way you can do that is don't have things set in the mind yet. Okay? Because you're not balancing you until you understand you through its equation. All right? This helps you in all ways and forms, doesn't it? Yes, it's very powerful, Pam. You understand more. Especially when you understand source. Everything is source. This zipper, this has sound. See? See? It's traveling faster. Does it have an ego? No. But if I interpret to have an ego, it now has an ego. Now, if it has an ego, something will happen with this zipper. The zipper will lock. Do you understand that? It's an inner line center location of disruption location to its energy field, which offlines its position location to its electrical light connection. Why do you think things happen? Like if you tie your shoes too tight and you can't get that knot out, you're frustrated. You're creating an ego. Pulling it more, you're creating more of an ego. You're doing that to yourself, all through emotion. That detection correlates its position location to the calculations here, right? So if you look at my shirt, it's got all patterns, right? It's white, round, line center, circulation, rotation, line, rotation, interference. You see it as a shirt. I see it as position location, levels of travel. So traveling through patterns, everything is line signal of balance. Everything is balance. Everything is balance. So if your body's off balance, your shirt is off balance through vector. You understand? It's how you interpret yourself inside through emotion. It changes everything outside line connections of you through your entire system. So that's how you interpret locations of egos, guys. Powerful stuff, isn't it? What we just finished doing through day, right? So it's occur locations, all right? Tomorrow we travel through Babylon. Adios.